anyway, because they feel confident. But anyone else, they will have 2 or 3 young people who are political staffers who actually run Ottawa, and they take, oh, it's absolutely true. Ottawa is run by 23-year-olds who've never had a job in the private sector, and they tell cabinet ministers what to do and where to go. And we just saw that last week. Jerry Ritz is there. He finally shows up after, you know, the biggest meat recall ever, and he finally has to go out and deal with the press because he's been ignoring them. And they got 4 questions out, and then this unelected 23-year-old went, "That's it, no more questions." And Jerry went, yeah, because essentially, like, that's coming straight from the PMO. Get him out of there, right? So I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but anyway, these, you know, they're just not that interesting. Yeah. And so, you know, that is the cute answer, but also I like talking about them versus to them. Yeah, right, sure. Yeah, and Terry, of course, one of the beauties of the way you work is you never have to talk to them, do you? Just watch them.
No, I don't. I don't have to talk to them. And in fact, it's a bit of a danger in that occasionally you'll meet an individual, and you know they're very nice people. They pay their taxes. They're good to their kids. That has nothing to do with it.
No, it has nothing to do with it.
You know, because I say it's on the playing field. Yeah. But you don't want to get into a position where you like somebody a little too much. And you know, a lot of these guys are quite likable, but really, I personally feel that there needs some distance from individuals. Yeah.
Sure. 90% of them are very likable because in order to have any level of success in politics, and don't take this the wrong way, unless you're a conservative in Alberta, and don't take that the wrong way, but in order to have any level of success, you have to achieve on the doorstep. You have to be able to knock on the door and talk to a stranger and be friendly. You got to be able to sit next to them on a plane and talk to them. And that's, unless you pass that hurdle, you'll never get anywhere. Right. Now, it's a bit different in Alberta because once you get the Conservative nomination, you don't even have to go knock on doors. So there's a little bit of a difference here. But as a result, when you meet these people, they're all really nice. I learned very early in my career. John Crosbie was the senior cabinet minister from Newfoundland. And I built my career in Newfoundland going after John Crosbie. And then I met I was in Ottawa, and his executive assistant, Ross Reed was his name, he invited me out for a bite to eat. And I thought, oh, this would be interesting. And we went out and we ate at a restaurant, and I was like 19 years old, and it was like, ooh, pasta. With a spoon. This is fancy. And anyway, we had a great time, and he was a nice guy, and I liked him. And then 2 weeks later, John Crosbie resigned, and Ross Reed announced he was running in his riding. And then it was a fait accompli that Ross Reed was going to be the new senior cabinet minister from Newfoundland. And I was like, well, this sucks because I really like Ross. So I made a conscious decision not to become friendly with any of them. And I've gotten pretty good at, you know, chatting and saying hello, but I don't become friends. Belinda Stronach was an exception because we actually became friends, which is weird because she's the worst interview I ever had on the show. But that was the only time that I've ever, you know, an actual friendship developed. We have a limited amount of time now for any questions or comments. Now, we would like to use the microphone in the center here, if that's possible. So I would like someone as far away from the microphone as possible to sort of slowly inch their way towards it. Take as much time as you can to get there as we sit uncomfortably up here on stage, doing some highly unintentional comedy. So any questions or feedback? Not one question? No. Okay then, well, that's all the time we have this evening. Thank you so much. Here we go. Not so fast. Yes, sir.
A couple weekends ago, Bill O'Reilly and Jon Stewart debated, and Bill O'Reilly said something really sane to a really interesting question. He was asked, what is the problem with democracy in America? And he replied, capitalism. He said that because of the need to make profits, a lot of political commentators, they're saying very societally, they're looking at very societally trivial issues and saying very scandalously entertaining things in order to attract more people's attention. And he's saying that that's ruining democracy in America. So I'm just wondering whether you three, being entertainers, can just comment on his commentary from the perspective of the media.
What?
I don't think you know, if I had to list you know, the problems with democracy in Canada or the United States, entertainers would be very low if I had to list the problems in order. You know, certainly if you get columnists, people who, yeah, they want to, you know, attract viewers or readers or whatever. Some of them will be more outrageous and some of them may be unfair. But I think that's always been part of the game, and I don't really think that in Canada anyway, that's really an issue. You know, you know, not to point any fingers, but, you know, like Ezra Levant, I'll point a finger. You know, I mean, I've known Ezra for 20 years, you know, and he started that show, and, you know, Sun TV, they asked me to go to work for them before they started, and they laid out their plan of complete media dominance in Canada, which was going to happen overnight because they were going to have these outrageously opinionated people like Ezra doing exactly what Ezra does, and it just didn't work. I mean, he gets more and more outrageous every day, but Canadians just aren't watching. So I don't think it's simple as that you just be outrageous and you'll get an audience.
I think you are probably talking about entertainers, but let's get into the realm more of satire and the importance of satire as a testing system within a free society. Satire thrives in free societies, but the importance of poking fun at ourselves and recognizing the fact that nobody's perfect. First cartoon I put up of the rabbits with, you know, idiot. We're all idiots. Every one of us are idiots one time or another. But if we can recognize that and laugh at it, then we're healthy individuals. Freud wrote a great deal about the business of the healthy individual, the importance of the individual being able to laugh at himself or herself. Well, you transfer that to a society, and it's an essential part of any free society that we be able to do that. If we're entertainers at the same time, if we entertain you, well, so be it. But I don't think of myself as an entertainer so much as someone who's really sort of poking fun at the human beings that we are. Okay?
Thank you for your answer for the idiot question.
You're welcome.
I would actually, just to extend that, I would like to ask you both to comment, therefore, when it comes to the parameters that you have, the comfort you have in freely expressing yourselves. Talk a little bit about, you know, your relationship with the Gazette and your relationship with the CBC.
You want to take that, or do you want
you know, I've been on TV for 20 years, which is a long time, and for 10 years it's been the Mercer Report, and I'm the producer, one of the producers. Our company produces the show, and never once has anyone ever suggested that we should not say anything or I should lay off on this subject matter or not. The only issue that has ever come up, and it's not really an issue with me because I don't swear in prime time, is that, you know, 10 years ago you could say shit in prime time, and now the CBC doesn't really like it if you say shit, but I don't say shit, so it doesn't come up. But if I dropped one, then they'd probably say, really, Rick, you're going to say that? But I wouldn't do that because I'm a family show anyway. So no, in terms of interference or suggestions one way or the other, has absolutely never happened.
So it's a good
On the other hand, I got asshole into a cartoon in 1994 that was published. So
there you go.
So, wow. But that was sort of a test, like because I think in the National Assembly, people were calling it's sort of a minor member an asshole, and it got out, and so I just I've got to apologize. My grandkids are here. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Just sort of part of what I do, kids. I forgot. Anyway. So
he's never said the word before.
Anyway, it's fascinating business. But my newspaper, my relationship with it is a very healthy one.
Yeah.
And I've earned it over a period of time, and you know, I've had exceptionally good editors.
Yeah.
One of them is here tonight. Andrew Phillips is one of the best editors I ever worked for at the Montreal Gazette. A great guy. But he understood. You just sit back, and there are days when I'm going to bomb.
Yeah.
There are days when the cartoon is just not going to be that good, but there are other days, if you leave the cartoonist alone, there are other days when they're really going to deliver and come through, and I think that's the way you have to deal with most of them. So I've been very fortunate to have a whole series of excellent editors who pretty much leave me alone. But they do come and go. My wonderful wife Mary bought me this ring in Mexico of skulls. You see that, Rick?
I do.
They're skulls. I'm not a biker or anything. But they're all the editors I've survived at the Gazette.
Now, I would imagine at a newspaper though, ultimately the deal is like don't print it, right?
Yeah,
that's what it could come down to.
That's my deal.
Yeah,
I have a contract.
Like
I'm not an employee. I have a deal with the Gazette, and I've had it for a very long time, where I draw the cartoon, and it's their right to print it or not, but they pay me anyway. But I suppose if it reached a point where they were killing me 2 or 3 times a month, then we'd have to have a discussion. But that hasn't happened.
Right.
A couple of times a year they might say, usually it's a question of taste. It's not politics. It's say, you got a little too far. And sometimes, I got to admit, sometimes I'll get pissed off and I'll throw a fastball at an editor's head.
Right.
Andrew, I never did that to you, did I? Okay, so occasionally I'll get pissed off about something. So I know that they're not going to print the cartoon, but I'll come up with some. But actually, it's interesting that the book cover, I didn't think they'd print it, but they did.
Right.
So.
Was there ever an instance, do you work with any editors or are there people that you trust who, you write a cartoon and you think, okay, or you draw a cartoon and you think, okay, this is great, and then that person just says, no, it's actually not that funny. It's just not good enough. Come up with something else.
I think they probably wanted to, and they've probably been right. It's occasionally, as I said before.
But is there anyone in your life that you trust that way?
Is there anyone, my wife?
So if she just looked at it and she said, no.
She's kind of gone, whoa.
Yeah, and then... Yeah. And then you would go back to the drawing board.
What? No.
I'm curious because, my partner, Gerald, reads my rants.
Yeah.
And there are a few people who, and sometimes I think I've nailed it. And last week I wrote one about Tony Clement called a press conference and announced that, from now on, ministerial drivers can no longer get overtime. And this is a classic conservative response to a story that the Tories, the cabinet ministers, are the only ones who have the ministerial drivers. The drivers booked $600,000 in overtime last year, right? $600,000. So, of course, this becomes a story, especially in Ottawa. But the way they dealt with it was they called a press conference. They're like, well, we're getting to the bottom of this. Those drivers are not eligible for overtime anymore. Meanwhile, the reason why they get overtime is because if you go to a Sens game, there's ministerial drivers are lined up around the block. Yeah. Because they're all, and they're all got their drivers out there. So I wrote about this, but again, it was one of those situations I had to explain the situation, and then I ended with the line, that's a good. It takes, if you were caught with your pants down in the back seat, it takes balls to blame the guy behind the wheel, and I thought that was really clever, and Gerald just said, "Oh no, that's just unseemly." And I'm like, no, but he's caught with his pants down. It's because they got booking the overtime. He's like, no. So at 11 o'clock at night, I had to start over again. But you don't have anyone who you just go, okay, I'll take your word.
Mary comes as close to anybody, but I mean, the cartoon just goes in. I mean, right. I don't even work. It goes in, and then occasionally.
I want to be you when I grow up.
We're terrible spellers, so occasionally they say, oh, you got that wrong, and so you correct that. And occasionally, I am open to suggestion. The other day, a guy said, just drop the line, the cartoon works, and my editor of the Gazette. And he was absolutely right. So I did. But I always have the option to say, no, I'm not touching the cartoon. Right. And they have the option to not print it. It's a very mature relationship. It's a good one.
Yes, sir, Mike.
I just want to say, first of all, probably the reason there were so few questions is because the two of you are very intimidatingly funny.
I thought we were going to turn on you. Yeah. Might happen yet.
So, if I can get topical for a moment, there's a new government in Quebec, and I remember what the PQ campaigned on, and I remember the things they said about language minorities and what they said about religious minorities, and now I'm in the government, and I just feel this profound sadness about what they said, because I thought it was quite awful. And I'm wondering if you two are kind of cooking up jokes on that topic that will make me feel a little happier about that.
That'd be you.
Send this man home happy.
Oh, go. It's you here, Quebec.
You're always cooking, but then you begin to sort of tailor it. Look, it's not a question of just being blatantly, arrogantly critical for the sake of being that. you know, if you're drawing fire, there has to be smoke. So that usually anything you do is based on things that are happening out there or that you suspect are happening out there. It's very important. If I just did outrageous cartoons of every politician on the face of the earth, outrageous caricatures, I'd lose my credibility. I'd bore people. But you have to be cleverer than that. And so I think you have to apply the cleverness to the situation you're dealing with, or if you decide not to deal with it. It's a complicated process, but we all come up with it individually. There are cartoonists who draw cartoons I would not draw, but I support the right to do that. On the other hand, there may be things that I draw that they would not draw. But whether they probably respect my right to do so anyway. So it's a very tailoring process, an individual one, when you're coming up, and a lonely one too, for me. But I kind of like it that way. I'm sitting there, I come up with my reaction to whatever it happens to be, and do the best I can with it, and hopefully somebody the next morning is spewing their cornflakes as they see the cartoon. That's the ideal, right? Do you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you're talking about specifically about, you know, the Quebec election, and you know, anytime anything happens, or there's a figure that I don't like, or there's something I don't like, I never hope for, like, you know, what's good for me and what's good for the country are two completely different things. Yeah, exactly. But I never sit around and actually hope, you know, for something bad to happen, or for politicians to implode, because it'll make my life easier. You know, granted, I'm a national show, so I don't cover municipal politics, but even if I cover municipal politics, I wouldn't sit around hoping that, you know, Rob Ford is around for 8 more years, because it makes my life easier. So, you know, you got to deal with the cards that you're dealt with, but you hope for good cards. And I actually, by that, I mean, I don't hope for a train wreck. I actually hope for good government. And, you know, if I sense that there's not good government, then that makes me sad more than anything else, like yourself.
Who was it who said the decent man is always ashamed of his government? Mencken, was it? Somebody like that.
Good line. A decent man that's a good line.
Yeah. You're smiling. We'll send you home smiling if not happy. Great. We have time for one last question.
Kind of building on that last question a little bit, looking for more assurance from the clever politicos. In your opinion, both of you, are things getting worse? That's it.
You know, that depends entirely on your ideological point of view. Like, I'm guessing, and this is a stereotype, that there might be more lefties than righties in this room. But, you know, I have friends who are conservative and, you know, say they're 42, 43 years old, and they spent 15 years working on conservative campaigns, and in 15 years they never got anyone elected. Well, in the last couple of years, you know, in the last 5, 6 years, suddenly we have a conservative federal government, and they're, you know, they're thrilled that Rob Ford is in the mayor's office, and they keep hoping for the hat trick. For them, things are getting better. If, you know, the idea of, you know, 3 levels of government being conservative is a bad idea to you, well, then it's getting worse. But it depends entirely on your ideological point of view. I mean, some people think, you know, getting rid of environmental regulations surrounding rivers is a good thing, clearly. Jim Flaherty just put it in the omnibus bill today.
Terry, are things getting worse?
I would say, big picture, yeah, I would say things are better. Things are certainly better than they were 30, 40 years ago in terms of public attitudes about women. It could still be better, but they're sure a lot better. Certainly about gays, there's a lot, the crime rate is actually down, despite what you might read. Things are better, but that's because of public discussion. Just take the current discussion about bullying. You know, as far as I'm concerned, Mitt Romney is the ideal bully. But it's out there and it's discussed, and I think it's because of efforts of Rick and a whole bunch of other people. Not only humorists, but good columnists, good discussions within society, that we discuss these things and attitudes change. I know my attitudes have changed enormously in the last 30 or 40 years. I used to be very glib about certain things. Now things that I have to be far more thoughtful about. We live in a much better society than it was 40 years ago, but there are problems, and I think we still always have work to do, and we always have to pay attention. Sounds kind of optimistic for a cartoonist, doesn't it? But yeah, things are better. I think it's a better world for my grandkids than it would have been, hopefully. But they're going to do a great job.
Terry Mosher's new book.
Good.
It's called Was It Good For You? Rick Mercer's new book is called A Nation Worth Ranting About, and right now the two of them are going to go to the back of the room in order to sign as many copies as humanly possible. Please join me again in thanking them. Thanks, Rick.